So, we are approaching that 2-month mark for Modern Warfare here pretty soon, and I figured now that we've all had the chance to play the game a decent amount in the time since launch, we've been able to experience enough of the game to form a solid opinion on it. You know, we've seen a handful of title updates and major fixes go live, and we've also seen some new content added in as well. So between all the changes we've seen since launch and the core gameplay and design of the game itself, I definitely think we have enough to look at to really form a well-rounded opinion on the game. But before we get into the review, if you guys are new here, hey, hi, how you doing? Each and every day we are covering the latest Call of Duty news and intel, so feel free to subscribe if you want to stay up to date with all of that. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like rating on it, as it would be much appreciated. Also, quick reminder, until the 26th, my partners over at G Fuel have boosted code IMMORTAL to get you a 30% discount on pretty much everything on the site. So if you are interested, be sure to take advantage of that while that boost is active. And now let's get into an in-depth breakdown and review of Modern Warfare. So let's start off with some of the positives and the things I like about the game, then work our way into what I feel could be improved upon to really help the game reach its maximum potential. First and foremost, by far one of my favorite elements in this game is the Gunsmith feature. It is one of the best innovations I think we've ever seen in Call of Duty, and it is easily the best created class customization feature that we have ever had. I just think the ability to have upwards of 50 or 55 attachments on certain weapons is seriously insane, and that amount of customization and, I guess, personalization that can go into any given class setup is absolutely awesome. While there are definitely some attachments that seem to be favored in a lot of cases, like, I don't know, the stippled grip tape that you guys have kind of turned into a meme here on the channel, or things like the skeleton stock and GI mini reflex, each weapon does have a ton of options when it comes to how you want the weapon to look and also perform. And this system, like I said, I think is the best we've ever seen in Call of Duty. One thing I will say about the Gunsmith, I do feel like there is one missed opportunity there, and that comes down to displaying actual weapon stats when you have certain attachments equipped. Currently, when you kit out a weapon, all you see is the pros and cons listed for each attachment, and then the adjustments they make are on the stat bar. But those changes are only visualized by little red and green bars and not actual numbers, so we're not able to see just how impactful some attachments really are. So moving forward, if the Gunsmith were to return in other Call of Duties, I think having actual numbers instead of just bars for the stats would be a very big improvement. Moving on, the next thing I really love about this game that kind of ties into the Gunsmith, I guess, is the ability to change your class on the fly in-game. Previously, we've never been able to adjust our class during a match, and instead only on the main menu. Sure, you could have always changed your actual class itself, like going from class 1 to class 2, but that was not always necessarily effective or even useful a lot of the time. But now if you make a setup and suddenly you realize you're not really a huge fan of it, maybe it feels too slow, maybe the recoil is a little too much, or whatever else, you can just jump right in and change your attachments as you please, as much as you please. Or, you know, if you're like me and you go for a lot of different camo challenges to get gold unlocked, and you finish a certain challenge and need to then change your setup in order to move on to the next one, you can now do that on the fly as well. All around, just being able to change your setups in the middle of a game is another massive plus in my book. Now, another thing that I find myself really enjoying this year is the game modes outside of these standard 6v6 playlists, that primarily being Ground War and also Gunfight. Ground War to me offers a very different Call of Duty experience, since obviously the maps and the sheer size of the mode in terms of the player count is far, far larger than what we've ever seen in traditional multiplayer in the past. And that chaos and frenzy-filled gameplay is something I am a huge fan of. However, that said, the tanks could definitely be nerfed or, even removed, and I would have absolutely no problem with that. Those specifically in my mind feel like a bit too much of a handout, but overall Ground War is definitely a big W for me. Meanwhile, over in Gunfights, this is another mode that I think they really nailed it with, as it is incredibly fun to run around with completely random setups as you never really know what you're going to get. And on top of that, it is extremely competitive, which I absolutely love. I've always been a very competitive person, so this is right up my alley, and it's also very easily accessible. Any time of the day, any day of the week, I can jump into gunfights and just have a good time. So I think with some of their additional modes so far this year, they have done really well with them, and of course, we are going to see even more new modes added in the future as well, so I for one am looking forward to seeing what else they implement down the road. In addition to that, I think the attention to detail in this game is pretty astounding too. From the audio in-game with things like bullet casings dropping, to certain visuals, and a ton of other stuff in between too, there's a lot of little things here and there that to me just show the devs really wanted to be as accurate as possible with various aspects of the game. And I find that to be really, really cool. But now let's get into some of the negatives and some of the drawbacks of the game, because while everything I just brought up is really cool, the game has definitely not reached its full potential yet, and there are certainly some things it can improve on. First and foremost here, I think one of the biggest drawbacks so far this year has been the inconsistent communication. Prior to launch, the devs seemed super active on Twitter and Reddit, answering questions and just hyping up the game. And then launch came around, and a few days after that happened, the communication just seemed to die down a bit. And in the time since, I feel like it's gotten even more sporadic. We don't really get a ton of information released outside of the patch notes, which, by the way, recently haven't even covered the entirety of the changes occurring in-game, as there was a massive list of secret changes that were made behind the scenes. Most of the time it seems like they respond to a lot of questions about bugs and glitches and whatnot, but a lot of the more pressing issues are, I guess, just left on read. We know that the devs have a certain path they want to take with this game, and things like the minimap, skill-based matchmaking, and so on are always being brought up, and while I honestly don't expect them to change anything based off of what we know about the situation now, I think simply acknowledging the outcry surrounding these topics and responding to them in some kind of official manner could be beneficial. Even if they don't want to change the minimap or alter the matchmaking or do whatever else, simply saying, hey, we get what you guys are saying, we see you guys wanting changes here, but this is how we want to approach the situation, yada yada yada. Even if it's not update announcements or stuff like that, simple updates on the design direction I think could prove to be very beneficial at the end of the day. Now, aside from that, the next thing that I find to be a drawback with this game is of course the matchmaking, which obviously has been one of the hottest topics in the community to date. Some people are fine with skill-based matchmaking, others think it's the downfall of Call of Duty entirely. But I just have to say, whatever the system that we have is, if it's skill-based, if it's recent performance-based, whatever else it might be based on, it certainly does not feel like it's connection, and that to me is probably the biggest problem. This is a Twitch shooter with a very, very fast time to kill. A good connection is going to be vital in providing the best experience to all players, and in its current state, when I sometimes find myself searching for lobbies for minutes on end, I just can't help but feel like connection is not the only factor in matchmaking, so that to me at the very least should be addressed and explained by the studio, or even better yet, adjusted. Then, of course, we can't talk about negatives in this game without mentioning Spec Ops. This to me is a huge missed opportunity because Spec Ops back in the day was awesome. I had a blast playing it, and this year, between it being really difficult in some cases, the mode itself being riddled with bugs and other issues, and the rewards being very, very lackluster, Spec Ops just has no big draw in my own opinion. Unless of course we're talking about drawbacks, in which case it's a very big one there. Seriously though, I feel like if the mode offered more for the grind, it might be a bit more fun to play. And of course, at its core, the gameplay experience definitely needs some work, as the bugs and glitches are seriously hindering the mode as a whole in its current state. Now, I don't really want to end the video off on a negative note, so I guess to close things out today, I should say that honestly, I think this game has the potential to be one of the best Call of Duty titles in history if the proper changes are made. I think between the positive things that we touched on in the beginning, coinciding with certain changes being implemented, the state of the game could definitely improve overall. Obviously, we have a long year ahead of us before COD 2020 releases, so there are going to be plenty of changes and new things added in. But at the same time, I feel like the longer we wait for the state of the game to improve, the more agitated the community is going to become. So hopefully we can see some positive solutions come to the game before we reach that quote-unquote too little too late mark. So with all of that being said, those are effectively my honest thoughts on the game as of right now. I think we've had enough time to experience the game for what it's worth at this point, but with so much room for improvement still out there, we might have to revisit this topic in a few months to see what all has changed then. But for now, if you guys enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like rating on it, as it would be much appreciated. And of course, if you are new here and you want to stay up to date with everything going on in the world of Call of Duty, including all the latest news and intel, updates and leaks, and pretty much everything else in between, Feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on, that way you'll always know when I post a new video. As I mentioned earlier, right now my G Fuel discount code IMMORTAL will get you 30% off your entire order. So if you do want to pick up a new tub, shaker cup, or starter pack, now is easily the best time to do so. So if you are interested in that, be sure to check out the link down in the description below. Once again, thanks so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.